Bad logo placement can ruin a good t-shirt no matter how dope your design is. So in today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how to place your logos the right way. We'll cover front chest prints, neck tags, jersey numbers, sleeve prints, and more. All the key placements you need to make that perfect shirt. So stick around to the end. And if you find this video helpful, make sure to drop a like. Now let's jump in. Now, to make all this more easier and more accurate, you're going to need basic tools. A ruler, a tape measure, or even a T-square. Personally, I think a T-square is the best option. It helps you line up things perfectly every single time, especially when you're working on multiple shirts and want that consistent placement. Alright, first up, the front chest print. This is your standard go-to and probably the most common placement you'll use. Now, the general rule of thumb is to start your design about 4 fingers down from the bottom collar. That's roughly 2.5 to 3 inches. This keeps the design sitting right on the chest, not too high on the neck and not too low on the belly. Clean center and easy to wear. Now, if your hands are like Shaq's, then you might want to go with 3 fingers instead. But all seriousness, the 4-finger rule works great on most men t-shirts and unisex t-shirts. If you're printing on women tees or U size, I recommend using 3 fingers. That's about 2 to 2.5 inches from the bottom of the collar. It just sits better on smaller shirts. Now, using your hands for logo placement is something that you do visual. For accurate, consistent prints, stick to the T-square. I just like to include the hand because we're not always walking with a T-square. So sometimes, you gotta do a small inspection. The hand always helps because it's always there. Obviously, Milo. Now, here's something a lot of people overlook. Not every design is a perfect square or a circle, which makes centering tricky. Take this design as an example. It's a sword with a little bit of texture and a dragon with some drip. Now, if I try to center the design based on these effects, it will honestly throw the design a little off. It probably will sit too high or too low because these are not the main focus. The main focus are these right here. These swords right here. Same thing right here. The main focus is stay graceful. Everything else is extra. So here's a tip. Always center and align your designs based on the main focus. It could be a name, a shape, or even a bold color. Don't let extra design elements like splashes or drips throw you off. Keep the focus front and center, literally. Now, how big should your front chest print be? Well, obviously that will depend on your logo and your design and your style, but the standard way will be between 10 and 12 inches wide. I'll use the same design for all my small, all the way through my extra large. If I'm printing on a 2X or a 3X, I usually bump up the design an inch or so. That's technically the correct way to do it. But here's the truth. That means more work and more money. And honestly, a lot of people don't like doing that. I'm one of them. Especially when you're doing small orders. In that case, I'll just use a universal size from small all the way to 2X, or sometimes even extra small all the way to 2X. Sometimes that makes more sense. Keyword, sometimes. But even if you have the perfect placement and the perfect print size, there's one more thing that you have to think about, and that's the t-shirt style. For example, a design will look different on a fitted tee compared to a standard or loose fit. A fitted shirt will naturally stretch the print a bit, which can make it look bigger than it actually is. I know that's not technically about placement, but it goes hand in hand. Those little details matter. And if you keep all these tips in mind, your shirts will always look more professional. Next up is the left chest print. Super popular for logos, small branding, and company uniforms. And honestly, the placement is very similar to the front chest print. Once again, you want to start your design about 4 fingers from the bottom of the collar. That's roughly around 2.5 to 3 inches down. Now here's the trick. First, find the center of your shirt. Then measure 4 inches to the left. That's where the center of your design should sit. Now, if you're screen printing, this part is probably easier because all you have to do is register your design to the lines on the platen and lock everything in place. But if you're heat pressing, you'll need to get a little more hands-on. A good method is to fold the shirt in half vertical and press it quickly to create a center crease. Then just measure over from the crease and you're good to go. As for the size of the left chest print, a standard size is around 3.5 to 4 inches. That looks pretty perfect for most logos, and it looks clean without taking over the shirt. If you want something a little bit more bolder, or if you're printing on larger sizes, you could go up to 4.5 inches in width and height, but I really wouldn't go over that because you still want to look professional. You don't want to look like you just moved the full front print to the side. Let's talk about full back prints. These are perfect for big bold designs or statement pieces. The same rules you follow for the front also apply to the back. But here's the thing, you actually get a little bit more flexibility. For back prints, you can start your design about 2.5 to 4 inches down from the collar. The reason for the extra wiggle room is that the back of the t-shirt tends to sit a little higher and flatter than the front, giving you more space to adjust the t-shirt more comfortably. Now the cool part is that you could actually go bigger with back prints, while the front, the standard max will be around 10 to 12 inches. With a big back print, you can go up to 13 inches, even 14 depending on the shirt size. That gives your design more impact without feeling overwhelming. Just keep in mind, anything over 14 inches is considered a jumbo print, and that's a whole different process. Different setup, different screens, more work. We'll save that for another video. Sleeve prints are super underrated, but when they're done right, they're fire. Think flags, logos, branding. And I'm just touching the surface. For short sleeves, the standard placement is about an inch above the sleeve hem, centered vertically. This keeps it clean and wearable without looking off balance. A standard sleeve print is usually between 2 to 3 inches wide, and at most 4 inches, depending on the shirt style and size. Just remember, always pre-stretch the sleeve a bit if you're screen printing. That helps avoid warping once the shirt is worn. Now, for long sleeves, things get a little trickier. You can do longer vertical prints. A good rule of thumb is around 3 inches wide by 14 inches long. That's just the standard. Great for stacking text, branding, or long design. But if someone asks for a shoulder print on a long sleeve tee, here's a tip. On a short sleeve, you usually go 1 inch above the sleeve seam. But on the long sleeve, that won't hit the same. Instead, you go about 2 inches down from the top seam, and that will give you a very similar look. Same goes for the wrist print. Just place it about 1 inch above the wrist seam and you're good. And just keep in mind, sleeve prints aren't meant to be huge. Anything over 4 inches wide starts to get into jumbo territory, and that's a whole different topic. So if the job doesn't call for it, try to keep it standard. This one's for the brands out there. Neck tag prints. Super clean, super professional, and a great way to make your t-shirts look retail ready. You'll want to print these inside the collar area, usually about an inch down from the collar seam. It's pretty straightforward. You're basically printing exactly where the original tag was removed. Keep it simple and small, no more than 2.5 inches wide, and usually about 1 to 1.5 inches tall. That's enough space for your logo, your shirt size, your fabric content, and the care instruction. Let's break down the jersey style print. These are huge in sportswear, soccer, basketball, football. I would say baseball, but I really don't consider it a sport. I'm just kidding. Let's get serious. The front of the jersey is usually printed the same way you would print any regular t-shirt. Left chest, center chest, or sponsor logos, depending on the style. Pretty simple. Now the back is where things get a little trickier. At least for me it was when I started. Here's the breakdown. The player's name usually starts about 2 to 3 inches down from the bottom of the collar. A standard name print is around 2 to 3 inches tall, depending on the length of the name and the shirt size. The number goes about 1 to 2 inches below the name. If there's no name, then the number alone should sit around 5 inches down from the collar seam. As for size, I personally like my numbers to be 8 inches tall, but a good rule of thumb is anywhere between 8 and 10 inches depending on the shirt size and layout. This layout keeps the design clean, balanced, and easy to read, just how a proper jersey should look. Now everything that I show you today is very basic but super common. I'll say 90 to 90% of the time you'll use these standard placements when making t-shirts, but every now and then you'll get a request that's a little different. For example, here's a side print. What I do is I register the design center on the platen, then I align the sleeve with the center line on the platen. For consistency, I start my print about 1 inch from the bottom hem. And here's a pro tip. For side prints, I highly recommend using t-shirts without side seams. It makes the process a lot smoother. Another less common placement is the back of a neck print. Some people ask for this instead of an inside tag or as an added branding element. It's pretty simple. Just place it about 1 or 2 inches down from the collar seam, depending on the size of the design. If there's a logo placement you want me to try or to break down in a future video, please let me know in the comments. I would love to help. Thanks so much for watching. Have a beautiful day, and God bless you all. Comfortably, 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 comfortably. You guys know what I mean.